Everyone, welcome. I hope you're having a great sustainability week so far. My name is John Ferguson. I work for Economist Impact. I focus a lot on trade and supply chains, as well as geopolitics and all those things in the world. But it's within that context of trade, supply chains and procurement that I want to discuss with this great panel here. How do we build and educate our workforce? Now, it's in the context of building resilience into procurement decisions. And we want to talk about what does that actually mean. I want to start with this great panel who I'll introduce in a moment. What does resilience mean, particularly in relation to the concept of sustainability? Are those two at odds? What does it really mean? I want to ask about the core question is, how do you educate your workforce? Can you build it from within? Is it hiring? Is it bringing people, external experts? Is it external workforce? What about your training programs and your upskilling programs? So this is all about how do we upskill and train and educate our workforce when it comes to building that resilience. So that's the context. And if I can manage my time correctly, we will, like the last session, have some times for Q&A towards the end, if I can manage my time correctly. But let me briefly introduce the great panel we have. First, we have Andrew New, who's the Chief Executive at NHS Supply Chain. It's great to have you here, Andrew. We also have Nicolas Marie, Chief Procurement Officer at Pladis. Thanks for joining us, Nicolas. Okay. Thomas Newbigging, who's the Head of Procurement Sustainability at GSK. And last but not least, Darragh Clear, AI and Sustainability Consultant at TCS. Andrew, maybe I can start with you. Before we get to the core question of how do we educate and build our workforce, can I just ask everyone here, starting with you, Andrew, what do we mean by resilience, and particularly what does it mean in the context of sustainability? Are these things at odds? Is it just resilient, getting your things on time, or do we have to bring sustainability in? Can you just tell me how you think about what actually resilience means to you?
I think resilience and sustainability become one and the same. You know, if you think about our role as NHS Supply Chain, we need to make sure that the health service in England receives all the products they need exactly when they need it, not just today, but every day. And when we're designing supply chains, we're thinking about how do we ensure that the decisions that we're going to make will endure into the future. In the previous panel, you heard a great piece around partnerships.
Yep.
And how we need to make sure that we've got sustainable suppliers, which mean they're there at all times to fulfill our needs. So I don't see resilient supply chains and sustainable supply chains as being different things. I see them as two parts of the solution that enable us to give confidence to our customers and our ultimate service users that when they need us, we'll be there.
Yep. Okay, good. So there's no conflict. I like conflict sometimes in terms of these issues. Thomas, what about yourself? I mean, resilience, sustainability, do they work together? I imagine we have to do these things, but just briefly, how do you think about resilience when it comes to sustainability?
Yeah, so I guess given my role in procurement sustainability, they have to, or I don't have a job, so I need to make them.
Good job. Good.
Yeah, so for us, we're a global biopharma company, so resilience is making sure that we can get medicines and vaccines to our patients pretty much no matter what is happening in the world, right? Because there's not just a commercial consequence if we can't, there is a health consequence to patients in our value chain. So I think when we look at how sustainability ties into that, environmental risk, environmental dependency is one risk of many that could prevent us from getting the medicines and vaccines to patients. So it's all part of the same program.
Yeah. Nicolas, any tension, come on, between resilience and sustainability?
No, listen, for me, it's the same definition. Sustainable.
I'm trying as hard as I can, everyone.
Yeah, you're doing a good job.
Hard. Okay.
For me, by definition, a sustainable supply chain is resilient.
Okay.
That's what it is built for, in order to make sure that it's basically proof for the future. So, of course, we operate in the food industry. I'd just like to introduce maybe another notion as well, which is resilience. It's about product availability. We want to make sure that our consumers can find the biscuits, but it's also about affordability because, yeah, you can always find something probably, but at what price? And if the supplier cannot afford it, then you're not building the resilience of your supply chain. Yep. So we're trying to address both notion of availability and affordability as well.
Okay, great. Darragh, I just want to move on. Before we get to the team, the workforce part of this, which is the core part of it, can I just ask you about the strategies maybe you see when, okay, there's no conflict between sustainability and resilience, but how are you seeing organisations, your own or others, actually try to achieve resilience in regards to sustainability?
So I definitely agree with the guys here. any of the clients that I work with, we're not seeing it separated out in any way. I think what we are seeing is this, ability to build digital twins, digital frameworks that are able to address both resilience and sustainability at the same time. Nobody's coming to us and saying, we need a sustainability platform, we need a resilience platform. They're definitely recognizing that it's one and the same thing.
Right. And they have to achieve those two things at the same time.
Yeah, and more. And more. I'm sure we'll get to it a little bit later on, but when you look at, testing the resilience of a supply chain, that using that technology to, run scenarios and all those many different things are, incredibly important.
Thank you so much. Andrew, again, before we get to the workforce, and this is fascinating to me because we're going to be asking our teams to do all this in a moment and how we do that. But Andrew, just on the strategies, how are you, pretty important role there for obvious reasons, but how are you strategizing for resilience and sustainability? Any examples you can share?
I think we consider this as like a layered thing. So traditionally speaking, people would talk about, you've got visibility across some of your direct suppliers, you've got enough stock holding in the right place, and you're balancing your just-in-time delivery with your stock. And interesting, but not a resilience model for today.
Right.
We've got to recognize that visibility and transparency through the supply chain to understand where your critical risks are, both sustainability type risks, and in that we put environmental and we put the water and rare earths and we put all the other pieces into that conversation, alongside resilience of where physically are these things being shipped through, how is that supply chain operating, is it got high health ratings, and where are those risks? For us, you then bring that into a set of decisions around things you can and can't afford to stock, because cash is going to be king in our world, at each layer of the supply chain that for us works through national distribution, regional distribution, into care settings, right up to someone's hand, to the point where actually you then give the patient a level of choice as to which thing is going to be used on them. So you take that notion from the far end out that says, so you're going to have a conversation with a patient, the variability of demand in our world is just huge. You have a conversation with a patient now and they say, no, I would like manufacturer number 7's hip, please, when I have my hip replacement. So we have to understand the breadth of all of these products and not just have this bill of materials that you could operate to in a manufacturing setting. So we have to mix together a mindset that's kind of part service-driven resilience and part product-driven resilience, which is why these layers are so important. Visibility and transparency clearly become a far greater thing, both in what's possible now, as well as what matters. And we're now able to have conversations with our teams to say, if X happened, where do we think our most likely risks are to point our teams in the right places to then go and make great decisions? And all of this comes down to enabling our teams to just make fantastic decisions. And in future, I'm sure AI will help as well. But at the moment,
we'll get to that.
It's about people having the information in place to make great decisions about what will achieve the great outcome that we're looking for.
Thank you, Andrew. Thomas, I want to come to you. I think people are being asked to do a lot here. Is that right? I mean, yes, technology is going to play a role, and I do want to ask Darragh about AI in a moment. But Thomas, on our people, on our teams, on our workforce, there's a lot going on here. Product mindset, service mindset. How are you thinking about upskilling or educating, creating agile teams? How are you thinking about your workforce, trying to deal with this complicated world that we face?
Yeah, so I think looking at my role and the focus around environmental sustainability, we try and look at training through kind of two different aspects. There's, whether we like it or not, we've kind of created our own language in the world of sustainability. And at the moment, not everyone in procurement speaks that language. So I think the first kind of foundational level we look at is how do we build that literacy? How do we build that basic level of competence so that procurement can start to have these conversations through a supply chain? I've got a team of 8 people. We've got over 18,000 suppliers, so either I'm really busy and never sleep, or we train procurement and they can lead some of those conversations. So there's the kind of foundational level, and there's also the really category-specific levels. We buy lots of different things in pharma. We buy active pharmaceutical ingredients, packaging, we buy agricultural materials. People have to understand the specific risks, the specific dependencies that sit within that category, to be able to build it into their procurement strategy and make it part of their job.
I find this really interesting, the language point. It's came up in my session at lunchtime. we need to do this all together, but we need to be able to understand what each other is talking about. So you said at the start of that answer, you created your own language. Does that mean you have to train your 18,000 suppliers? And what about the rest of the industry? I mean, that's a difficult job.
Yeah, I mean, we see a real mix of maturity within the supply chain, right? There will be some suppliers who, frankly, are probably more advanced than us, and we can learn things from them around innovation. We have others who are earlier on the journey. So I think it's understanding where does that supplier sit within your maturity model, and then what do you need to do from a relationship perspective to build environmental resilience in there. So within pharma, we've tried to tackle this as an industry wherever we can. So what are the key topics? And rather than them getting an email from every one of their customers saying, hey, we got this great training, how do we identify the key topics and deliver them at an industry level?
Yeah. And forgive my silly question, but is this like KPIs, how to measure things, getting data from them on some of their sort of sustainability? Is this the type of language in issues that you need your suppliers to be clear on when they communicate back with you?
Yeah, there's some of that, right? So maybe to give it an example to bring it to life. So if we look at one of our key environmental risks and dependency, it's around water.
Yep.
So pharmaceutical manufacturing, quite a water-intensive process. A lot of the manufacturing takes place in water-stressed locations. We need a way to track how we're mitigating that risk, and creating KPIs around it is a way to kind of turn it positive, if you like. What's something that we can track and build into a balanced scorecard that shows the progress we're making in improving resilience. So we would look at things like supplier water stewardship programs, water efficiency targets, what level of joint action are they taking at a basin level, and again, try and build that into the balanced scorecard for that supply chain.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for letting me dig in a bit deeper. Nicolas, what are you thinking about when you think about educating your workforce? There's a lot going on. There's language and communication challenges. There's understanding products and service balance. What are you thinking about when you're educating your workforce?
So it's quite interesting because procurement started with resilient supply continuity. You know, procurement started with placing a PO to make sure it was delivered on time, in full. And we've lost that because the focus, and it was a given, it was a standard, and basically the focus come on cost, cash, innovation later on. And probably since COVID, we are rediscovering the benefits of a strong, resilient supply chain. And we probably have to re-educate our procurement workforce along those lines. And probably the solutions that we had before 50 years ago are not the same. Hopefully, we have a much wider array of tools in order to help us to build that resilient supply chain. So let me take an example. Historically, it was probably about dual sourcing, building business continuity plan with your suppliers, making sure that they had 2 factories in case you have an issue. Now it's more about localization. How do you bring it back? How do you go into your upstream integration, not by vertical integration, not by capitalistic acquisition of your suppliers, but through traceability, and therefore building a stronger partnership with your upstream supply chain. So I think, once again, we need to re-educate that, and we do that through training. We do that as well through the objectives. We're trying to do that as well through our operating model, making sure that the decisions we are taking are not just about cost and cash, but also about CO2 emission, about the resilience of our supply chain, and so on.
Okay. And when you mention training, is that internal and external? Is a part of that training your partners and suppliers as well?
Just to give you an example, within procurement at Pladis, basically we have 5 strategic deliverables that range from cost, cash, obviously, risk management, innovation, and sustainability.
Right.
And it means that within the first year, they go through those 5 modules in terms of training, and we explain what is our sustainability ambition within the group, what is their role as part of that, and as you said, aligning a common vocabulary as well. Are we really talking about the same thing when we talk about sustainability? Because there's no real definition of sustainability, especially in agricultural commodities.
Yeah, fantastic. Darragh, thanks for your patience. Now we can bring in AI. We have to. But I'm really interested not just in what the technology can do, but that intersection of people and AI. So what do you see when we want to educate and upskill our workforce, but in that intersection of AI and people?
So let me start with the people aspect of it first. So one thing that I'm seeing, and I'm going to be an optimist this afternoon, because I'm seeing some good things happen out there. I think we should be optimistic.
Good. I'm Australian. I'm always optimistic.
Exactly. Come on. I'm being Irish. I'm the same. So what I'm liking, and Andrew will be fully aware of this, is we're starting to see now the tendering and scorecard process change massively, and public sector in the UK have really led the way in that. So when you're sending out a tender to engage services into the supply chain, they're weighting social value and sustainability up between 15 and 25% in public sector now. I'm starting to see that seep into private sector. And that's good, because when we talk about training people, bringing people on the journey, that's the start. If they understand why we're asking suppliers these questions, it starts to inform them of, okay, this is important, this is what we need to do. The AI part is, in a lot of cases, I'm doing a lot of work in food retail at the moment, and we're down to a level of trying to get a carbon footprint per product level. So you can imagine the enormous volumes of data. Quite frankly, we need AI to manage that.
Yeah.
And it comes back to this digital twin. Sorry for banging on about that, but that's so important. And I'm sure you've all heard of digital twin to match your supply chain. But the AI journey is interesting in that, you start off with your machine learning, where you're teaching it, then you're working with it in generative AI, and then it teaches itself in agentic AI. And when you talk about these massive volumes of data, you need that, because you simply don't have the people to get through this, to get the outcomes that you want.
But do organisations need people to run those systems?
Yes.
There's still a human. There's still a human in the loop, I imagine.
There's still a human in the loop. I'm not going to go down the route of it's got to remove jobs or whatever. I think when you look at the sheer volume of the data, you need AI to do it. You just don't have the people power.
But that's another layer of skill, right? If we're talking about our workforce, our teams in our really important and quite big organisations as well, we need some people, maybe not everyone, but who has that knowledge to run some of those new tools and models.
Sure, and also look at this scenarios-based modelling. When you look at resilience and supply chain, and particularly this food example, when there's crop shortage, there's flooding. If this happens next year, what do we do? So people need to be trained on running those scenarios. And of course, the beauty of that is it's not just beneficial to procurement, supply chain, it's beneficial to the whole business.
Yeah.
So there's lots of upskilling that's needed in that area. Yeah. And it's a different world. It's a new thing.
Thank you. I'm sure there's a lot of scenario testing going on right now.
But
please jump in.
There's more than this, though, because reality in my world says, if you're critically ill and you've got a respiratory problem, a cardiology problem, or you've got a traumatic problem with your skeleton, you're going to want to know those bits are there to fix you.
Yeah.
Whether we've got plasters and bandages and cannulas and everything else, you're probably more chilled about. Just reality says there's a prioritization thing. So when we look at the complexity of the supply chain and the visibility we need, I can, through a number of people, focus on those things. But we make 578,000 products available to a clinician to choose at any one point in time, because they might need it when presented by a patient with a certain need. And the average hospital might buy 20,000 products on an annual basis. I'm not going to pretend that I've got someone looking at every single one of them, but I can have a pretend person looking at every single one of them, presenting facts to a useful group of people who know how to interpret them and make great decisions. So I don't look at this as we can substitute people out of the process. I say we can get much smarter, much quicker, and cover a far broader area. And rather than thinking about these as performance indicators, I consider them to be risk indicators. What is the risk indicator for this area of spend, this category of spend, this group of products, this product, that means we need to take action to ensure that we do have a resilient and sustainable supply chain that can care for people. So for me, let's use the tools to better do more, because actually I don't think anyone's doing all of it now.
Yeah. But Andrew, that makes a lot of sense, but therefore you need the people do you need to train people to do that, or you've already got them? Like, has that been a journey to get to that point? Because it makes sense and it sounds critically important. But did you have to bring people along? Did you have to train people to get to that point?
Yeah, and we're still working our way through this. So we've got the difference between who is an expert in resilience. So where we have an event that happens that causes a problem, who is going to step in and resolve it? Yep. You have that kind of expertise. There's no point in having 150 category managers that have all done it once every 15 years. You want people who do it every day to be able to do that kind of activity. Same on the sustainability stuff. When we're saying, look, how are we going to design our selection criteria in future, and how's it going to differentiate products and suppliers? You want people who think about this all day, every day, not a category manager who thinks about 150 things a day, and this is 2 of them.
Yeah.
So you've got to balance out the general skills that everyone needs to have and the depth that they need to have that skill with expertise who can then guide those people and support them through the processes when they need it. And it's this balance based on the scale of a role to say, is it focused enough to have specialism? Or is it broad enough to have generalism? And we've had to balance the two.
Yeah.
We've got such a breadth.
And I imagine it's fast moving.
It changes all the time.
Team structures, there's a lot going on here, which people are balancing. Yeah, fantastic. I do want to come to the audience in a moment, so get your questions ready. But I just wanted to ask Thomas one last question, just on this tech point. How does that play out with your training and upskilling? Are you bringing people in with certain skills to do these things, or are you focused on understanding what your current teams can do? Just the intersection of technology and team development. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so I think if you ask 10 people in our procurement function, what is the best way to be trained, you'd get 10 different answers, right? So it's like, how do you cater to different learning preferences across the organisation? And I think for some people, tech is increasingly becoming their preferred way to train, right? So if I want to learn more about something now, I don't go onto Google, I don't get a book, I speak to ChatGPT, have a chat and ask questions. So just to give an example, that's one way we're looking to leverage AI within training is, can we build sustainability into our in-house AI chatbot that would allow procurement to go and do a practice negotiation with a supplier around sustainability resilience, for example, and see what kind of challenges they're going to get and what counterpoints they're going to have. So we are looking at how we can build that in. We've also had feedback around people don't want to come to an hour-long webinar anymore. They want a 60-second video that gives them what they need to know and they can get on and do their job. So again, it's how do we create different types of training people need in order to learn.
Yep, fascinating. Okay, 5 or 6 minutes left. Questions in the audience. We have some microphones. Thank you so much. If you could briefly introduce yourself, briefly ask a question, would love to hear any questions you may have. Any questions in the audience? Otherwise, I can keep going. But I've got lots of questions about educating the workforce. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. There's a microphone on the way. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah. Just referring back to the previous talk as well, there was a lot of talk about how do you sort of get credit for the work that you're doing? So these all seem like fantastic leadership type people that are doing good work. But when the consumers sort of consuming their products, how do they know? How do they get the benefit? And I think that unless we actually make that connection, it's not really going to make a positive impact on the world. So I guess it's the people that work with consumer products, which would be the GSK chap and the Pladis chap.
Yeah,
Pladis.
Yeah, thank you. How do you get credit?
Maybe I can jump on this one. It's not just about the credit, it's how do you build the storytelling behind that? Because it's sustainability, let's be honest, most of the time will come with an on cost. So either you're building it as a standard and the whole market is moving to that new standard, and then that's fine. And probably that's going to be pushed by compliance. EU is doing a very strong job in that direction, for example, to make sure that taking deforestation, everybody has got the same standard. But if you want really to be able to price it up, you're probably going to have to leverage your sustainability story in creating a storytelling for the consumer that makes your product different versus the competition. And therefore, because it's a vector of differentiation, you can price it up. So a very good example of that is when we build our sustainability strategy. I talked about localization, for example. One example is, we know biscuits used to be made out of palm. Palm is exported out of Malaysia, Indonesia. We know that in the current environment, the shipment between Southeast Asia and Europe is not the most reliable. So we're moving to rapeseed oil, sunflower oil in Europe. And rather than just going from trader relationship to another trader relationship, we're saying, no, we will build the resilience of our supply chain in Europe by working directly with the farmers. And therefore, you can tell the storytelling about, listen, this biscuits is made with rapeseed oil from UK farmers. And listen, go and look at the QR code on the packaging, and you would see the farm they're working in. And you establish an emotional bond with your consumers through your sustainability story. So I think it's one way of doing it.
Any thoughts, Thomas?
Yeah, well, storytelling was the word I was going to use, actually. So I think internally, from a resilience perspective, if we can look at supply chain resilience risk through the product lens, it's a lot more powerful story to communicate through procurement, because it's not inventory and on time in full. It's if we don't get this right, this group of people who have this condition won't receive this medicine. So it really helps land that message as to why this is important. And then I think our customers are the likes of the NHS as well, right? So when they have a really clear procurement strategy, which requires environmental sustainability performance, that's basically building my business case for me. That's cascading a business case through the value chain. So it's really powerful.
Thank you so much. Any last questions? Yes, thank you so much. Just over there towards the back. We can fit one more in, I think. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Don from Eleanor Healthcare. A very fundamental question. If you are starting from scratch to build a sustainable procurement strategy, what are the key steps a business would have to look at?
If you're starting from scratch, what are the key steps? Anyone like to throw a few answers out there?
Well,
Nicolas?
The first thing, it cannot be a procurement-only sustainability strategy. It has to be a business sustainability strategy, because it needs to be endorsed by the highest level of the organization. So procurement, yes, will be probably a leader of this strategy, but will have to basically execute what is the overall business strategy. So that's, for me, the key point. After, I would say it's about capabilities, and we discussed it before. For example, in procurement, we've created a dedicated position for sustainability, which is our expertise point, but also the person accountable to deliver our objectives in terms of sustainability. So he's driving the relationship with all the category managers in procurement to make sure they execute their objectives around sustainability. And we need that constant, I would say, drive within our organization to push our objectives.
And I think if you then add in the kind of the purest procurement lens, we've got the business lens, and procurement is part of the business lens. You can't have a sustainability strategy for procurement without all the other strategies for procurement that need to sit alongside it as well. If you end up with a purist sustainability strategy, what you'll find is you have to compromise everything everywhere every day. And all these things will always complement each other, conflict with each other, and you need a really simple way of making decisions. Otherwise, when you get to the point of your teams trying to actually deploy it in real life to create the value as you've defined it for your organization and for your customer, it's not deliverable. So keep sustainability at the heart of your procurement strategy as a key part of your business strategy. And that link has to happen in both directions.
Thank you so much. I have one last burning question, and I really want to ask it. It's not hard, but it's really interesting, to me at least. So forgive me if anyone else had any more questions, but just one last burning question. If we think about someone at the start of their procurement career who wants to join one of your organisations, we know they have to be focused on resilience. We know they have to understand sustainability. We know they have to understand these pretty amazing technologies coming along to help them do their job. What's one bit of advice you would give to this person starting their career, getting into procurement, and that when they need to balance all these things? If there's any, what are you looking for in a person maybe joining your organisation that they really must have? Random question, I know. Didn't prepare for it. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Cool.
Sorry.
Please.
I've got one answer. Curiosity.
Yeah. Curiosity.
Yes, okay. Because procurement is not a negotiator. A procurement person is basically one day going to talk about sustainability with suppliers, sometimes about innovation, sometimes about costs, sometimes about cash, sometimes about resilience. So he needs to be interested by all these aspects and always looking for the latest trend, latest information.
Makes sense. Thank you.
And I'll add, think.
To be able to think.
Take time.
See, it's a great, I like this, see?
People think we go at 1,000 miles an hour, they've just got to do the next obvious thing.
Yeah.
Stop.
Think
it through twice, and you might come up with something different.
Oh, I really like
thinking.
this. Thank you so much. Thomas, and then I'll come back to Darragh.
I was going to say learning mindset, so very similar answer.
So these are all very similar. Curiosity, think, learning mindset. These are all very, very, very similar answers. Yeah, Thomas? I interrupted, sorry.
No, you're fine. For exactly the same reason, right? As procurement, you hold the keys to the relationship with the supplier. There's a lot of topics we need to manage with the supplier. So you've got to be curious, you've got to be willing to learn.
Yeah. I'd say tenacity, in there as well. Everything's changing so quickly. We've got geopolitics, we've got technology, we've got linear versus network supply chains. It's a lot to take on board, but I think the people that are coming into the business now are probably used to that more so than we were. They're used to having so much data at their hands. So, just the ability to see it through.
Yep. Absolutely fascinating. Listen, I'm totally selfish. I have kids looking to join the workforce, and I think these are brilliant answers. So thank you for allowing me to ask a very selfish question. We have run over time. We need to draw this to a close. The next session has unfortunately been called off. The speaker's not available, so let's move on to coffee. We all need coffee. I need coffee. But please join me in thanking the panel for a great discussion.